At my engagement party, I suddenly heard my ruthless stepbrother's thoughts. My little brother is being naughty. Maybe I should turn him into a taxidermy piece? That way he can't marry anyone else and will be with me forever. I froze in terror, because his one and only little brother is me. I never expected Edward to come back for my engagement party. His gaze was as fierce as ever, like he wanted to kill me on the spot. As I cautiously tried to avoid him, a voice echoed in my mind. It sounded a bit familiar, but I couldn't place it. Jason, you asked for this. Who? Who's calling my name? How did I ask for anything? God knows, ever since my mom married into the Wilson family, I've played the part of the innocent, well-behaved kid every single day. I haven't offended a soul. I glanced around in confusion, trying to find the source of the voice. But the only person standing next to me was my fiancée, whom I had never met before. I couldn't help but look at her a few more times. I think her name was Amy. Amy tilted her head, a little puzzled. Is something wrong, Jason? The voice was a man's, and Amy's was sickeningly sweet. I paused, shaking my head. It's nothing. I must have misheard. I shook my head again and quietly picked up a glass of champagne from the table. The next second, I heard the voice again. My little brother is being naughty, trying to marry some other woman. What if I had him stuffed? That way he can't marry anyone else and will be with me forever. My jaw dropped. That obsessive, fierce voice. I finally remembered who it belonged to. My hand holding the champagne trembled, and I looked in panic at Edward, who was standing not far away. His lips were pressed into a thin line, his eyes fixed on me like a hawk, dark and menacing. I stumbled back a couple of steps in fear. Ha! So you'll finally look at me? What's with that expression? Does he hate seeing me? Or is he afraid I'll ruin his big day? Marriage? In his dreams. I was floored. It really was Edward. Seeing that his mouth hadn't moved at all, something clicked. It seemed I could hear Edward's thoughts. I nervously swallowed, my Adam's apple bobbing. TSK, he's seducing people again. I really want to tie him to the bed. What the hell? The shock sent a jolt through me, and I accidentally spilled the entire glass of champagne on myself. I looked down and saw my newly toned abs faintly visible through the thin, soaked shirt. I didn't even need to look up to feel Edward's intense gaze burning into me. Help! Somebody, help me! I had been avoiding Edward for 3 years. I thought he wanted to destroy me because of the family inheritance. Turns out, he literally wants to destroy me. My involuntary trembling must have made Amy roll her eyes. She handed me a napkin. Wipe yourself off. Don't be an embarrassment. Fiancé. I glanced at Amy. She's surprisingly not that bad. I was just about to take the napkin. But then I heard, touching another woman? He can do without that hand. I suddenly remembered when we were kids. My stepfather's friend's son tried to bully me by making his pet snake bite me. Right in front of me, Edward grabbed the snake and ripped it in two with his bare hands. Terrified, I snatched my hand back and, without a second thought, turned and fled. No, it's fine. I'll go change. The engagement party was at the Wilson family home. I could have just gone upstairs to my bedroom, but all I wanted was to escape this place. This place couldn't hold me, and it definitely couldn't hold Edward. I thought for a moment, then changed direction and strode towards the exit. I was just a prop in this engagement party anyway. I had done my part, no one would care where I went. Walking out of the Wilson mansion's main gate, my troubled mind felt a sliver of relief. I took a deep breath, opened my sports car door, and was about to leave when someone suddenly yanked me back. The person dragged me forcefully into a nearby corner. I couldn't make out who it was in the dark. But unfortunately for him, his thoughts gave him away. Jason, 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 I'm not letting you go again. Suddenly, I didn't feel like fighting anymore. I let Edward drag me along. His movements, however, were anything but gentle. He shoved me against the wall, his whole body pressing in, trapping me completely. My back slammed painfully against the wall, and I couldn't help but let out a small whimper. Fuck, he's seducing people again. I really want to shut that mouth of his, so only I can hear him. I quickly clamped my mouth shut, Then I heard Edward chuckle in the darkness. Jason, leaving in such a hurry? Rushing off to find a woman? What the hell? Amy is still inside. What woman would I be looking for? Wait, no. What do you mean, find a woman? I'm not even into… Before I could finish my thought, Edward, apparently annoyed by my silence, spoke with anger in his voice. What? Haven't seen me in a few years, and now you won't even talk to me? Ungrateful brat. I only went abroad for his sake. For my sake? I really don't see how. We hadn't contacted each other at all for years. How was that for my sake? I was a little pissed and wanted to talk back. But I'm a coward. And no, that's not it. Edward's grim expression softened slightly, but he moved even closer. Then what is it? So eager to leave, you don't want to see me? Why didn't he wait for me? Does he hate me that much? Oh God. Edward was so close, his breath fanning across my face. My face started to burn, so I turned it towards the shadows where he couldn't see. Who would have thought? Edward, who looks like a lone wolf on the outside, is like a pathetic puppy on the inside. We were at a standoff with Edward pressed so close. My heart was pounding out of my chest. I tried to ease the tension, but my stupid brain. I closed my eyes, and all I could see was the image of Edward. His lips pressed together, looking both fierce and hurt. I shook my head, quickly changing the subject. Well, it's getting late. I have to get back to school. Even though I was about to graduate from college, I didn't want to go back to the Wilson house, so I still chose to live in the dorms. But Edward just chuckled, his deep eyes looking straight at me. Who said you could leave? We finally get to see each other. How could he leave? What the hell? Before I could react, Edward grabbed my hand and started pulling me away. Where are we going? Edward didn't answer me. I had to jog to keep up with him. Edward wasn't as cold and icy as he used to be. The corner of his mouth was even curved into a rare, slight smile. He didn't pull his hand away, so he doesn't hate me, right? I miss him so much. I want to tell him how much I miss him. Will he think I'm disgusting? That damn old man. Arranging a marriage for him without my permission. The CEO of the Wilson Corporation can be someone else. Hearing this, I couldn't help but lower my gaze. I also want to tell him I miss him so much, but I can't. He's not the monster I am. We don't have a future. Edward held my hand and put me in the passenger seat of his car. He expertly pulled out the seatbelt and buckled me in. I pouted, a sour feeling welling up inside me. He's so practiced at this. This probably isn't the first time he's buckled someone in. Edward shot me a harsh look, but I wasn't scared like I used to be. Only because, now he can't run away. If he dares to run, I'll tie him to the bed. Turning him into a taxidermy piece is also an option. Edward slammed the car door shut and got in a moment later. He started driving without a word. But it's so loud. I frowned, trying to figure out a natural, casual way to cover my ears. Seriously, Edward's inner monologue was way too noisy. I was so close to him just now. But he smells like that stupid woman's perfume. Damn it. What kind of taste does that woman have, trying to defile him? The Smith family might as well go bankrupt too. What the hell? I sniffed myself hard and only then caught a faint scent of perfume. It really wasn't very pleasant. Why did he suddenly frown? Is he annoyed that I was too close to him earlier? TSK, I'm not happy. I want to punish him. What the hell? You've got to be kidding me. Why should I be punished because you're unhappy? I thought Edward was taking me back to school. But he parked the car in front of a villa in the city center. I looked at him, confused. I have to get back to school, brother. Felt so awkward. I hadn't called Edward brother in years. Most of the time, he just called me by my name. When did it start? I think it was one night during my first year of high school. Edward grabbed my neck viciously and warned me. Jason, you better behave yourself. Or else, I'll fucking kill you. I was terrified. I felt like he really wanted to kill me. I scrambled to pack my things and fled back to school, starting my life in the dorms. And Edward never came to school to see me again. We had a mutual understanding to keep our distance. Later, I got into a local college but still chose to live in the dorms. Then, I heard Edward was going abroad. Before I could decide whether to see him off, he contacted me out of the blue the night before he left. He texted me in the middle of the night, telling me to come downstairs. My heart was still pounding with fear. I could never forget the murderous look in his eyes. Was he going to dismember me in the middle of the night? But I was a coward, so I obediently went downstairs. After all, since I was a kid, I had always listened to Edward the most. But when he saw me, he instinctively frowned. He didn't say anything, just pulled out a cigarette and smoked nonchalantly. After a long while, he finally said, "Jason, behave yourself while you're here." Huh? What? His sudden words caught me off guard, and it took me a moment to process. Behave yourself. Don't get into any trouble for me. He yanked my collar aggressively, pulling us closer and closer. Did you hear me? At the time, I was trying to avoid him at all costs, let alone cause trouble. I just nodded quickly, wishing I could swear an oath to the heavens. But I never expected that would be the last time I saw him for 3 years. If I hadn't suddenly been able to hear his thoughts today, I would probably still believe that Edward hated my guts. Edward didn't answer me. He got out of the car and opened the passenger door. He leaned in, unbuckled my seatbelt, and scooped me up into his arms. I was startled and tried to jump down, but Edward's warning voice stopped me. "Don't move. If you move again, I won't be able to hold back." Hold back what? I didn't dare to think about it and just let Edward carry me into the apartment. Once inside, he finally put me down. "You'll live here from now on." I was stunned. I bought it. But didn't you just get back? How did you? Edward snorted and didn't reply. But I heard. So what if I just got back? I bought this for him years ago, but he ran off to live in the dorms, huh? Ungrateful little brat. I get it now. I really was being a little ungrateful, but I didn't dare say it. I scratched my head awkwardly. So are you done with your work abroad? Edward looked at me deeply, tossed his jacket onto the sofa, and walked towards me. You. With every step he took, I couldn't help but step back, until I had nowhere else to go, pressed against the bedroom door. Seeing Edward lean in, I quickly put a hand on his chest to stop him. Well, I need to take a shower. Edward raised an eyebrow and stood up straight. The bathroom is in the bedroom. I quickly opened the door behind me and fled into the bathroom. TSK, why is he so scared? It's not like I'm going to eat him. At least not right now. I shook my head, stripped off my clothes, and started showering. Tonight was just so surreal. A smile crept onto my face. Knowing how Edward felt about me was thrilling. But the next second, it was replaced by endless pain. What's the point of washing? Anyway, it's impossible between us. And on top of that, I now have a fiancé for some reason. I sighed, thinking back to the call from my stepfather a couple of days ago. He said he'd arranged a marriage for me and that I should come back to the Wilson house in a couple of days. On the phone, my stepfather sang the praises of the girl's family. I couldn't help but ask him, if she's so great, why don't you have Edward marry her? My stepfather was silent for a few seconds, and then his voice turned cold. Jason, I'm giving you a chance with this marriage. Don't be ungrateful. Who do you think you are? You're just the bastard your mom had with some other guy. I let you take the Wilson family name, so you better be prepared to sacrifice for the Wilson family. Do you think a family like the Smiths is good enough for my son? I had no reason to refuse this marriage. I had no right to. I agreed, returned to the Wilson house on time, and met my so-called fiancé. I put on a numb smile, trying to be a good little puppet. I never expected to see Edward. My mind wandered, and the soap in my hand suddenly slipped and fell to the floor. I covered my face in my hands. Oh God, what is wrong with my brain? Actually, my relationship with Edward wasn't always this awkward. When my mom was young and reckless, she was tricked by a deadbeat who got her pregnant with me. But my biological dad disappeared. So my mom was set up in an arranged marriage with the Wilson family. I was renamed from Jason to Jason Wilson. I was 3 that year and I met 6-year-old Edward. The two adults had no feelings for each other and usually did their own thing. My stepfather often brought different women home for the night. My mom didn't care either. She went clubbing every day, picking out men she found attractive to spend the night with. They paid no attention to me and Edward. So Edward basically raised me, acting as both my mother and father. Back then, Edward wasn't as cold as he is now. As a child, even though he was quiet, he was always the first to protect me. I was scared of lightning. During one thunderstorm, I was hiding in a corner of my room, terrified. It was little Edward who pushed open the door, carried me back to his room and said, "Don't be scared. I'll sleep with you." After that, I would always stand at his bedroom door, clutching my pillow, looking pitiful. He could never bear to turn me away. I would hug him happily and say, "I like you the most, brother. You're my favorite person in the whole world. I want to live with you forever." Later, I don't know when it started, but Edward changed. He would get extremely annoyed whenever I touched him. The way he looked at me grew more and more complicated. He didn't like it when I called him brother either. Gradually, I started calling him by his name. When I was in high school, a girl from my class grabbed me after school to ask me a question. We ended up leaving the school building together and ran into Edward at the gate. I ran over excitedly. "Edward, what are you doing here? Are you here to pick me up?" Edward just gave me a cold glance. His lips pressed together and said nothing. The girl came up behind me and asked, "Jason, who's this?" "Oh, this is my brother." The girl looked at Edward shyly. "Oh, your brother. Hi, brother." At that moment, I felt a little annoyed. Edward was my brother, not hers. What was she calling him that for? I stepped in front of Edward. "Well, my brother and I are heading home. Bye." The girl nodded. "Okay, see you tomorrow, Jason." She looked back at us reluctantly as she walked away. Edward snorted. "Get in the car." I cautiously followed him into the car and we went back to the Wilson house. The next day, the same girl came to find me again. "Jason, can I, get your brother's contact info?" My first instinct was to say no, but I wasn't sure what Edward would want. So after school that day, I found Edward. "Edward, that girl you saw yesterday, she wants your contact info." Edward suddenly snapped, grabbing my neck and pinning me against the wall. He stared at me fiercely, and after a long moment, he finally spoke. "You're that invested in my business? So eager to set me up with someone? Jason, you better behave yourself. Or else, I'll fucking kill you." I was terrified. At that moment, I truly believed he wanted to kill me. So that night, I took my pillow from his bed, preparing to sleep in my own room. He stared at me coldly and demanded, "Aren't you afraid to sleep alone?" I awkwardly shuffled towards the door. I have to get used to it, eventually." Edward got even angrier and threw the stuffed animal from the bed at me. "Get out." After that, Edward couldn't be bothered with me anymore. Knowing he despised me, I applied to live in the dorms and stayed away from the Wilson house. When did I realize Edward was different to me? Perhaps it was only after I moved into the dorms that I belatedly understood. I couldn't live without Edward. I didn't understand love and romance, so I asked a female classmate what it means to like someone. She gave me several novels, including some BL stories. I binged them all and suddenly started to understand some things. When my roommate accidentally touched me, I felt repulsed and disliked it. But I wasn't repulsed by Edward. I could only accept Edward. I think my feelings for him weren't pure anymore. But he hated me. My dawning love was strangled in its cradle. But I never thought that after all these years, after I had resigned myself to the Wilson family's arrangement, I would accidentally learn about Edward's true feelings. I lowered my eyes and walked out of the bathroom with a towel wrapped around me. Edward happened to open the door and walk in. Maybe because of the high temperature in the bathroom, my face felt a little hot. Where do I sleep?" Edward pointed to the only king-sized bed. "You sleep here." I paused. "Then what about you?" I hadn't seen any other bedrooms here. Edward chuckled, tilting his head as he loosened his tie. "I sleep here too." My mind went blank. You. Edward scoffed, tossing his tie on the bed. "What? It's not like we haven't slept together before. That was different. That was purely platonic sleeping." Edward walked straight towards me, and I instinctively backed away. I bumped into the corner of the bed, lost my balance, and fell right onto it. Edward straddled me, leaning down to gaze at me. TSK, he's seducing me again. I really want to do him. If he doesn't submit, tisk, I'll fuck him until he does. That damn old man, giving me such a huge problem. I awkwardly turned my head away, not daring to look him in the eye. Edward snorted, got up, and walked to the bathroom. Soon, I heard the sound of the shower running. I nervously wrapped myself tightly in the blanket and lay on the bed. As the water continued to run, my mind couldn't help but picture Edward's body. Ah, Jason, get a grip. A little while later, I heard the bathroom door open. I immediately shut my eyes, pretending to be asleep. Edward tiptoed to the side of the bed. His unique scent invaded my senses. He's asleep already, and here I put on oil specifically to seduce him. Haven't seen him in years, he doesn't miss me. Jason, do you hate me this much? Which eye of his saw that I hated him? He's the one who hates me. And what the hell is with putting on oil? Edward gently brushed the stray hairs from my forehead, leaned down, and placed a light kiss on my forehead. Good night, my little brother. He quickly got up and walked away. I peeked and saw that Edward wasn't even wearing a towel as he walked out. Damn it. How indecent. Damn you, Edward. Why did you have to seduce me? Why, at a time like this, did you have to let me understand your feelings? The next morning, I groggily got out of bed and opened the bedroom door. I saw Edward was already up and making breakfast. He turned to look at me. You're up? Go brush your teeth, then come eat. I stood there, stunned, in a bit of a daze. It was as if I was a kid again. I obediently turned back to the bathroom to wash my face and brush my teeth. By the time I was done, Edward had just finished making breakfast. Come and eat. I walked to the dining table, sat down, and casually grabbed a sandwich to start munching on. He's still so nostalgic, has a thing for sandwiches. If that's the case, could he be a little nostalgic for me, this old friend? My chewing slowed. Suddenly, I lost my appetite. I'm done. I'm heading to school. I hurriedly got up and walked towards the door, but Edward stopped me. Jason, the arranged marriage, what are you planning to do about it? I pressed my lips together, feeling helpless. We're already engaged. What can I do? I can't disobey your dad's orders. Edward snorted and said nothing more. That old bastard is so annoying. I should just kill him, then no one will stand in our way. My heart skipped a beat, and I frantically turned back to stop him. That's your own father. Edward narrowed his eyes, studying me. I didn't say anything. Crap. I was too hasty. I touched my nose. I just know what you're thinking. Edward chuckled. You know what I'm thinking? He doesn't know shit. Damn it, if he really knew, he wouldn't have tried to set me up with his female classmate. I couldn't help but mutter under my breath. I didn't understand before, but now that I do, what's the use? What did you say? Quickly shook my head. And nothing. I'm going to school. For the next few days, I hid out at school. Amy somehow got my contact information and sent me a friend request. I hesitated for a moment but eventually accepted. Amy quickly sent a message. Come out and go shopping with me. Me? I'm busy. Busy with what? Aren't you a senior about to graduate? Let me tell you, you're my fiancé. We need to cultivate our relationship. I pursed my lips, feeling resistant. No one said anything about cultivating a relationship before. I didn't want to deal with Amy anymore, but she immediately sent another message. If you don't come out, I'll just have to call Mr. Wilson. Location. 2 hours later. I was listlessly carrying a mountain of shopping bags, trailing behind Amy. I had been shopping with her for over an hour. She had to go into almost every single store, and if she saw something she liked, she bought it. After buying it, she'd make me carry it. Is she not tired at all? Are all girls like this? Couldn't help but sigh. Amy raised an eyebrow and took my hand. What? Tired? All right, after the store, we'll go eat. She pointed to a luxury brand store nearby and pulled me inside. As soon as we entered the store, my eyes met with someone inside. It was Edward. I panicked, not expecting to run into Edward here. TSK, my little brother's hand is dirty now. He actually let another woman touch it. A jolt went through me, and I quickly pulled my hand away. Amy turned around, annoyed. Jason, what are you doing? Are you that unwilling to let me touch you? And no, it's not. Then what is it? My head was about to explode. I had no idea how to explain. Amy, why don't I wait for you outside? The intense gaze from someone nearby was making me extremely uncomfortable. Amy was not happy. Why? Didn't I say we'd go eat after this store? Is he that unwilling to see me? Does he have to hide from me? I stood there, wanting to cry but having no tears. My head bowed as I stared at my feet. Why do I feel so guilty? Like I've been caught cheating. Amy huffed and turned to start browse. But after a short while, she ran over and pulled me along. Hey, Jason, I saw your brother. You think I didn't see him? Amy pulled me over to Edward and greeted him with a beaming smile.
Edward.
I forced a smile and looked at Edward. He looked at me coldly, completely ignoring Amy beside him. So annoying, who's her brother? Chirping non-stop. Jason is really something else. Doesn't come home for days, doesn't contact me. Turns out he was out with his little lover. He clearly said I was his favorite person in the whole world. So disobedient, huh? Maybe I should just handcuff him at home. Steeling myself, I grabbed Amy and looked at Edward. Edward, we're in a hurry to get to dinner, so we'll be going. Without waiting for a refusal, I dragged Amy away. In short, I had to get this unstable element, Amy, away from here first. Amy and I went to a nearby restaurant for dinner. She ordered a bunch of bland dishes, which killed my appetite. So I just watched her eat. Amy didn't mind me and ate on her own. After she had eaten and drunk her fill, she finally looked at me. You and your brother, you don't get along? I heard that Edward is a real badass. He went abroad for a few years, started his own tech company, and it just went public recently. Amy looked me up and down with disdain. Originally, our family was planning for me to marry Edward, but instead, it ended up being you. I pursed my lips but didn't reply. It's not that Edward and I don't get along, it's just, I'm afraid I'll lose control and cross the line. Besides, I have this whole other problem to deal with now. I looked at Amy and gathered my courage to ask her, why don't you tell your family to cancel the engagement? Amy's expression turned strange. Cancel? Impossible. But we have no feelings for each other. We'll be miserable in the future. Amy scoffed and stood up, walking over to me. She wrapped her arms around my neck and then sat down on my lap. Oh, come on, that's why I asked you out, to cultivate some feelings, right? Her hand slowly slid down. How about you don't go home tonight? I coldly grabbed her hand and stood up. No thanks, I have things to do. I'm leaving. Ignoring Amy's calls, I walked out of the private room without looking back. After washing my hands in the restroom for what felt like forever, I finally left the restaurant. I hailed a cab on the street, and when the driver asked me where I was going, I subconsciously gave him the address of Edward's villa. I paused, hesitated for a moment, but ultimately didn't change the address. Edward had already registered my fingerprint last time, which saved me the awkwardness of having him open the door. As soon as I entered the house and closed the door, I turned around and ran into a wall of flesh. Holy shit! I jumped, and Edward immediately grabbed my wrist, pinning me against the wall. Did you have fun today? Runs away the second he sees me, holding that woman's hand. Haven't seen him in 5 days, and he's busy with his fiancée? Ha! Fi and see. Once she's dead, she'll be nothing. Edward's grip tightened, and I could feel the low pressure radiating from him. I quickly explained, no, it's not like that. I was just completing a task. Amy asked me to go shopping with her. If I didn't go, she would have called your dad. I didn't want to go. I don't like her. Edward leaned in even closer. Then who do you like? I like. Edward suddenly looked down and laughed at himself. He let go of my hand, releasing me from his grip. It's getting late. Go get some rest. I bit my lip, holding back the bitterness in my heart, and fled to the bedroom. It's not like it could ever be me. Anyway, my body couldn't help but tremble. I wanted so badly to turn around and tell him that's not it. But I knew I couldn't. I don't have the right to be willful. The next morning, I walked out of the bedroom with swollen eyes. Edward was sitting on the sofa, his brow furrowed in displeasure. What's wrong? Didn't he sleep well last night? I was up all night compiling evidence and haven't slept a wink. I looked up and only then noticed the dark circles under his eyes. You? Edward pushed a file on the table towards me. Read this first. I shut my mouth and suspiciously picked up the file. What was this that required Edward to stay up all night to organize? I opened it and saw it was about Amy. Amy? Edward investigated her? Why? I started reading and was shocked. It was full of gossip. The file was filled with intimate photos of Amy with different men. Some were even nude photos. Afraid of dirtying my eyes, I quickly flipped to the back. At the end, I saw a report. It was Amy's pregnancy test.
Non pregnant. 0.003.
Pregnant. 30.00. 0.00. Progesterone 31. What does this mean? I was completely lost and blurted out the question. Edward clenched his jaw and said, "She's pregnant." Amy is pregnant? It all suddenly made sense. No wonder Amy ordered a bunch of bland food. And she ate several bowls of rice all by herself with a great appetite. No wonder she wasn't happy with me either. But when I asked her to break off the engagement, she was completely against it. I silently placed the file on the table. Edward snorted and looked at me. Go break off the engagement. I pouted. There was no way my stepfather would break off the engagement over this. He was clearly after the Smith family's business. The Smith family probably promised him a lot of benefits. I lowered my eyes and gave a self-deprecating smile. It's okay, I don't mind. Whether it's Amy Smith, who it is doesn't make a difference. I don't care if she messes around or cheats on me. After all, it's not like I can be with the person I truly love. I never thought that as soon as I said that, Edward would explode. He forcefully pinned me to the sofa, his hands on my neck. Didn't you say you don't like her? What's this attitude now? You know about all this filthy stuff and you don't care? Ha, or is it that you don't just like her, you love her? You love her that much? You love her so much you're willing to be cheated on. Jason, are you that pathetic? What is he even talking about? Edward, let go of me. I struggled desperately, but Edward held me tight. My legs flailed wildly, and I accidentally kicked Edward in a very sensitive spot. Edward grunted and held me even tighter. Don't fucking move. I felt something change and froze, my body rigid with fear. Edward, he actually wants to. Damn it. Edward's breathing grew heavier and heavier until he finally climbed off me in frustration. Stay home and behave. I've linked a tracker to your phone. If you dare to run, I'll break your legs. I was annoyed. Edward, this is imprisonment. On what grounds? Edward gave me a deep look. If I could, I'd lock you up forever. Make it so you can never get out of bed. My jaw dropped. Edward took the file from the table and walked out without another word. What a trashy woman, thinking she could marry Jason. Watch how I'll deal with you. My voice trembled as I called out to him. What are you going to do? Given Edward's psycho tendencies, I really wasn't sure how he planned to deal with Amy. Edward glanced back at me. Going to break off your engagement. What the hell? How? With words or with force? Should I give Amy a heads up? After all, she has a baby in her. What if something happens? But Edward didn't wait for my questions and walked out the door. I waited anxiously at home. Not long after, I got a call from Amy. I quickly answered, only to be met with a barrage of curses. Jason, what the fuck is wrong with your psycho brother? He came to my house, threw those pictures in my parents' faces, and demanded to break off the engagement without another word. And that's not even the worst part. Why did he have to leak those pictures? How am I supposed to face anyone in this circle anymore? Did you tell your brother to do this? Damn it. What are you two pretending for? Everyone in this circle is like this. We were just getting married for convenience, for mutual benefit. It's not like the Smith family didn't give your Wilson family benefits. Hearing her full-throated yelling, I was actually relieved. I waited for her to finish her tirade before I spoke. So, The benefits weren't given to us, and we're not the ones who did anything wrong. Amy, you disgust me. I hung up the phone and deleted her contact information. I waited anxiously until midnight before Edward came back. I hurried to the entryway and was about to turn on the light, but Edward stopped my hand. Go to bed. I felt something was wrong with his voice. Edward, what happened? He gripped my hand tightly, his body seemingly trembling. Go to bed. The engagement is off. That damn old man is so ruthless. He didn't just whip me, he punched me square in the face. I should probably stay out for a few days until my face isn't swollen anymore. What if I scare Jason? My heart clenched, and my trembling hand reached out to touch his face. Jason, are you insane? My eyes turned red, and my voice choked. Edward, you're the one who's insane. Why would you do this for me? Edward chuckled, his voice full of indifference. It's just a beating from the old man. I didn't want to hear his excuses anymore. I leaned in and covered his mouth with mine. I felt Edward's body stiffen for a moment, and then he let out a small laugh. I was instantly furious. Did you get hit in the head? You're supposed to close your eyes at a time like this. Edward chuckled softly, then cupped the back of my head with his hand, deepening the kiss. We shamelessly stayed at home for a week. The bruises on Edward's face had faded a lot. He immediately decided to take me back to the Wilson house. I was a little scared and didn't want to go. Edward frowned. What are you afraid of? They won't approve. And it's not good for your reputation. If in the future we break up, Edward patted my head and pulled me into his arms. Don't worry, I'm here for everything. I'll protect you, and I won't leave you. Edward had always been a man of action. That very evening, he took my hand and walked into the Wilson house. My mom and stepfather were both there. Ignoring the surprise in their eyes, Edward led me straight to the sofa and sat down. My stepfather's face changed. He waved his hand, dismissing the servants. Edward, what is the meaning of this? Edward looked back at me and smiled. It means nothing. I just came to let you know. We're together. You. My stepfather didn't hesitate, walking right up to me, trying to hit me. Edward grabbed his hand. Old man, you can hit me, but if you want to hit Jason, not a chance. I warned you before I left the country. Jason is my person. Don't mess with him. You're the one who didn't keep your word. What? That happened? I looked at Edward in surprise. He gave me a reassuring look and patted my hand. My mom snorted and walked over, her arms crossed. Your Wilson family is really something else. The old one fools around outside all day, taking people for abortions every other day. And the young one is no better, corrupting my Jason. I laughed. I looked at my mom coldly. What right do you have to blame Edward? What right do you have? You gave birth to me but never cared for me, spending your days drinking and partying. Edward was the one who raised me. He even went to my parent-teacher conferences in elementary school. You gave birth to me but didn't raise me, and now you're blaming us? What did we do wrong? All we did was fall in love. I took Edward's hand, stood up, and looked coldly at the two strangers across from me. Whether you approve or not, we're just here to inform you. Ignoring their anger, I pulled Edward and left the Wilson house. After we got home, Edward pulled me into a tight embrace. Why so brave all of a sudden? Weren't you scared? I scratched my head and hugged him back. You were so brave. I can't just hide behind you all the time. We were already the closest people in the world. He had already walked 99 steps towards me. If I backed away again, Edward would be hurt. I couldn't bear to see him hurt. Edward let out a muffled laugh and hugged me even tighter. How much longer until you graduate? Huh? About 2 months. Why was he suddenly asking about this? Edward stroked my head. After you graduate, we'll go abroad. He paused. Actually, forget it, let's just go in a few days. We'll go abroad and get registered first. You've got to be kidding me. Edward ended up waiting until I graduated. He came to my graduation ceremony, openly held my hand, and asked a passerby to help us take a picture. The passerby looked at us with surprise, and I squeezed Edward's hand back. After taking the picture, the passerby returned the phone to Edward. You guys look great together. Wishing you happiness. Edward raised an eyebrow and I smiled happily. After graduation, Edward wasted no time in whisking me off to another country. Literally whisking. He kidnapped me in the middle of the night while I was asleep and put me on a private jet. When I woke up, I was already in the air. He had arranged everything long ago. Even his return this time was to take me away. If I was willing, he would take me. If I wasn't, he still had the villa for me, so I wouldn't have to go back to the Wilson house. He really was a softie for me. He couldn't bear to turn me into a taxidermy piece after all. We settled down abroad. My mom, I don't know if my words got to her, suddenly had a change of heart. She tried to contact me several times. I ignored every single one. Belated affection is cheaper than dirt. The same goes for family ties. I have Edward by my side. And that's more than enough. Epilogue. One night, I was tossing and turning, unable to sleep because something was on my mind. Edward asked me what was wrong. I looked at him cautiously. Brother, I want to be the top. Edward pursed his lips and looked straight at me, but didn't say anything. I was nervous. I thought I'd be able to hear his thoughts, but after a long while, there was still silence. Wait, it dawned on me. I couldn't hear Edward's thoughts anymore. I was annoyed. I shouldn't have said anything. Is he going to get mad and be extra rough with me now? I carefully watched Edward's expression, but to my surprise, I saw him slowly nod. I was ecstatic and pounced on him. But not long after, our roles were reversed again. Panicked. You, what are you doing? Edward chuckled, his voice low and husky in my ear. I said you could be the top, but I never said you could be the top every time. My good little brother. Epilogue. My biological father is a scumbag. My mother defied her family to marry him. But while she was pregnant with me, she discovered he was keeping a mistress. After giving birth to me, my mother was depressed and didn't last many years before she passed away. When I was 6, I met Jason. He was soon renamed to Jason Wilson. It sounded much better than his old name. I really wanted to hate him, but he was only 3, and his own mother didn't care about him either. He was so soft and cute, tugging at my clothes with his small hands. He called me sweetly brother. My heart melted. Jason was very cute, as delicate as a girl. His personality was soft and gentle too. He was also afraid of lightning, hiding in the corner of his room, not crying or making a fuss. He was heartbreakingly well behaved. I took him back to my room and let him sleep with me. After that, he would always stand at my bedroom door, clutching his pillow, looking pathetic. The moment his eyes turned red, I was completely defenseless. I thought having a soft little brother isn't so bad. But gradually, I realized my feelings weren't so pure. Every time he touched me, my body felt like it was electrified. My heart pounded like crazy. When he called me brother, my heart trembled. But for some reason, he stopped calling me that later. Before I knew it, he had grown up. He had other friends and was no longer just mine. I grew more and more frustrated. I hated my own possessiveness. I always thought it was just possessiveness acting up. But I later understood that it wasn't ordinary possessiveness. When I saw him laughing with a female classmate as they walked out of school together, I was mad with jealousy. But he didn't feel my pain at all and even came to ask me the next day if he could give my contact information to his female classmate. That was the first time I lost control. I grabbed his neck and warned him to behave, to grow up obediently. But it seems I just pushed him further away. He stopped sleeping with me and even moved to the school. He didn't even come home anymore. I was furious, but I didn't dare to go find him. I was afraid he would hate me. After college, I chose to go abroad. In just 3 short years, I established myself overseas. My company went public, and I could finally provide for him financially on my own. But how ironic, the moment I came back, he was engaged. My little brother was being very naughty. He completely ignored my words. But it's okay. I will get my little brother back. Little brother can only be mine.